There is a four-word sentence, spoken by Vatican sources to a Spanish newspaper, that is making the rounds around the world these days. It's not an official statement, there's no press release, no signature, it's a minor detail, almost a footnote. Yet that detail, if accurate, shifts the center of gravity of the entire liturgical event of recent months, and it changes the meaning of phrases already spoken. By the end of this video, you'll understand why, and I'll leave you with 3 specific things to watch for in the coming weeks, which will tell you whether this reconstruction holds up or not. Let's rewind to January 7 of this year. The first extraordinary consistory of the new pontificate is underway in the Vatican. There are approximately 170 cardinals arriving from all over the world. 4 topics were to be on the table: evangelization, reform of the Curia, synodality, and liturgy. Due to time constraints, however, 2 topics remain unresolved. Among them, the liturgy itself. Officially, the Mass is not being discussed that day. Yet the cardinals are given a text. It is distributed by Cardinal Arthur Roche, prefect of the Dicastery for Divine Worship. It's a short document, about a page and a half, not an encyclical, not a decree, a memo. One of those no one thinks will make history. And yet today, that very sheet of paper is at the center of everything. It's worth seeing what's written inside. The text firmly defends the liturgical reform that followed the council and justifies the restrictions imposed on celebration according to the old missal. Then there's the central image, the one that has remained impressed on those who have read it. Tradition, it is said, is a living river. Not a static preservation of past forms, but something that flows and changes. And the Reformed rite, the text adds, is fully consistent with authentic tradition. It's a precise thesis, and it must be said that it has its serious supporters. Those who defend it note that the liturgy has always developed over the centuries, and that immobilizing it would be unnatural. So far, then, a document from the prefect of liturgy that sets out the position of his dicastery, debatable like everything else, but within its scope. And we arrive at August 2nd. The Spanish newspaper La Razón publishes a reconstruction that overturns the interpretation of that newspaper. According to the newspaper, the text was not Roche's initiative. It was drafted at the Pope's explicit request. And there's more. According to the same reconstruction, Leo XIV would have reread it personally before it was delivered to the cardinals. And this is where the 4-word sentence, attributed to Vatican sources that has gone around the world, comes in: he hasn't changed a thing. The newspaper adds a detail about the reason for this distribution. It was intended to make the new Pope's position on the issue clear to the cardinals. Pause for a moment, because accuracy is needed. This is a journalistic reconstruction based on unnamed sources, not a published document or an official statement. The Vatican has not confirmed it. To date, there is no signed document attributing that text to the will of the pontiff, and this must be borne in mind. Indeed, some observers have criticized this very approach, publicly attributing to a pope a decision he hasn't communicated, they say, takes away a space that belongs to him alone. This is a serious objection, and it must be reported, because if the reconstruction were inaccurate, the damage would still remain, having put into the mouth of the pontiff something he didn't say. That said, we understand why the news had the impact it did, because it touches on a point that had been unresolved for weeks. You'll recall that a few days ago, Cardinal Roche declared that the Pope would not change the restrictions, a prediction presented as a certainty. And you will remember the reply of the Archbishop of San Francisco, recently appointed to the Supreme Tribunal of the Church. I don't know how well he knows the mind of the Holy Father. That sentence left open a possibility that Roche was interpreting and that the pontiff had something else in mind. Many clung to it. The Spanish reconstruction, if accurate, closes that door. There would be no distance between the prefect and the pope because the text would have been desired by the latter. This is why 2 words in a newspaper carried more weight than 10 press releases. They don't add a new rule. They change the interpretation of everything that has already happened. There's also a detail that many have noticed, and that's worth reporting. The liturgy, that day, had been officially excluded from the topics under discussion due to lack of time. Yet a text on the liturgy still reached the cardinals' desks, delivered, not discussed, and on a topic that formally was not on the agenda. And on the same day that Reconstruction was released, 2 rumors arrived. They aren't a direct response to the document, but the timing struck everyone. The first is that of Cardinal Robert Serra, who spoke to an Italian newspaper on August the 2nd. His diagnosis is harsh. The Church, at least in the West, is experiencing a time of great difficulty and even confusion on the doctrinal, moral, and disciplinary levels. He uses even stronger words regarding the liturgy. He calls it a tragedy, indeed a real sin, that a kind of war is underway, and that there are fierce conflicts. Then comes the central sentence, the one that's worth the video. No one has authority over the rites, which arise from the centuries-old history of the Church. And he adds, rights cannot be arbitrarily abolished, and no one can say that a right no longer exists from one day to the next. His proposal is explicit, to return to Summorum Pontificum, the document of Benedict XVI that permitted the 2 forms, leaving the faithful to choose over the decades. It must be said, in fairness, that Sarah doesn't agree with just one side. She acknowledges that some excesses among those attached to the old form can be explained in part by widespread abuses elsewhere. The second voice comes from Ireland, where Monsignor Athanasius Schneider is preaching these days after a trip to Africa. In his homily on August the 2nd in Limerick, he said that preserving the precious treasure of the traditional liturgy is part of preserving the deposit of faith. And he added a historical warning. History has demonstrated 1,000 times that nothing is more dangerous for a religion than interference with the liturgy. From that interference, he says, arise discontent, disorder, and division. Then he recalls an old rule. Antiquity was preserved. Novelty was rejected. Placed side by side, these 3 elements tell the story of a single day. On the one hand, a reconstruction leading to the summit. On the other, 2 voices that speak the opposite of that document. So, instead of jumping to conclusions that no one can draw with certainty today, I'll leave you with 3 concrete things to observe in the coming weeks. The first, if the Vatican explicitly denies the Spanish reconstruction. Silence in these cases is already information. The second, whether the January 7th text will be published in full and officially, or whether it will remain a hand-delivered document and never registered. The third, whether other cardinals will speak out in the coming days and in what tone. This is the most reliable indicator of whether the matter is truly closed. Write down these 3 things and watch this video again in a month. The facts, not interpretations, will tell you which reconstruction was correct. If this channel brings peace to your soul, a subscription or a super thank you will help us keep it alive. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. What do you think? If you liked the video, comment Amen. God bless you